It is Thursday, July 8th. This is Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith, in for Brandon Walker this week. And what a week it has been. Another profitable night for us in Major League Baseball. And of course, the big story today, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning, your Stanley Cup champions. Don't think it's a surprise that we woke up today with a new winner of Lord Stanley's trophy. But we still have to talk about it. Lightning win the game 1-0 last night against the Habs. It was game 5 of the Stanley Cup final. Montreal was able to push it, avoid that sweep with the overtime win in game 4. But this game last night, very different than game 4. And if you were with us earlier in the week, we broke down what we saw in game 4, which was a little bit of a, I would say, depressed effort from this Lightning team. They didn't really show you their best stuff. They had their best stuff last night. Now, the scoreline might not reflect it. Obviously, winning by just 1 goal. They were able to cash on the money line, a big money line, but they did not cover that elusive puck line that we were hoping for. However, watching this game start to finish last night, there was really not a moment in the game where I was concerned that Montreal was going to score. They had a few flashes of, maybe. But sustained pressure and generating offense across the entirety of the game didn't really take place last night for Montreal. Very impressed, obviously, with what Tampa Bay was able to do defensively. But this was a pretty dominating performance start to finish. Montreal only had 22 shots the entire game. So Tampa Bay unable to get that second goal, the third goal, to really distance themselves and really emphatically get across the finish line. But they still win the game. They did everything they needed to do, and that is the true test, the true making of a champion. You don't have to win by 7 or 8. You just have to win. In this case, we would have liked it if they won by 2. But we'll take the win because I know we gave out the puck line last night, but I made a little shove with the account right before the game, and I had some people say that, there are some people who I trust say that there's really not much hope for Montreal in this game. And it kind of goes back to the value discussion we had a little earlier in the week, where Montreal, unless you handicap in 3 or 4 out of 10 scenarios that they're going to win the game, then I know the price was big last night. I think it closed right around minus 250. But if you're handicapping in 8 or 9 out of 10 scenarios that the Lightning are going to win that game, then minus 250 still is a good price, even though you've got to have deep pockets if you want to make any money off of it. My pockets are a little deeper this week because of our incredible run in Major League Baseball, so I was able to get a little aggressive last night, and I hope some of you, in addition to the puck line bet, also took advantage of some of the other options to bet on Tampa Bay, either shoving on the money line or the regulation price, which was pretty fair at minus 130, minus 140. So that's where we're at this morning. We didn't make our big, emphatic win on the puck line, but we're able to get home on the money line. Lightning able to win. They go back-to-back as Stanley Cup champs. They were 10-1 in the preseason, only plus 750 before the playoffs started to win it all. So that kind of shows you how much the regular season, in this case, sometimes, obviously, if the odds are longer, they have further to fall. But in this case, the regular season, which was, 6 months, 5 months, didn't really have a huge impact on the odds. You could have gotten Tampa Bay at almost the same price as you could have preseason. And obviously, before this series started, they were a prohibitive favorite to win it all. First time the Cup, and this is interesting. Anytime a team wins a Stanley Cup or any trophy, any championship, I always like to kind of look back and reflect on some of the things that we saw maybe in prior seasons. Can we compare this team to other years? And maybe some interesting nuggets to chew on as we officially close the book on another hockey season. But this is the first time the Stanley Cup has been won at home since the 2015 Blackhawks. And credit to the mayor of Tampa Bay. And we talked about that story earlier this week. Jane Castor, the mayor of Tampa Bay, got on local TV down there in South Florida and said she wanted her team to lose game 4 so they could win the Stanley Cup at home. Now, unnecessary, yes. Dangerous, sure. We've seen teams come back from 3-0 deficits before, but these circumstances were different. They weren't facing those teams coming back from 3-0 down. We're not facing the Tampa Bay Lightning. But the mayor got exactly what she wanted. So there's your lesson, folks. Never bet against politics and the mayor. Always gets what she wants. Just kidding. Obviously, politics does not have any impact, I hope, on the outcome of professional sporting events. So the Lightning won this game in shutout fashion. And obviously that's relevant because they continue to be, and as good as they are offensively, they continue to show you that it's the defense that really got them across the finish line in this case. So Vasilevsky, MVP of the playoffs, Conn Smythe winner, best goalie in hockey. Last 5 series victories for the Lightning have all been won via a shutout. What does that tell you about how they close things out? Kind of compare this team to that Jonathan Quick run with the Kings. They won the cup in 11-12 and 13-14. Blackhawks won 3 cups between 2010 and 2015. Corey Crawford, I don't know. I think Vasilevsky's probably better than him, but I'm trying to make some comparisons here to just how good and how much of a generational team this Lightning squad is. I don't want to use the word dynasty, but maybe we should at least consider it. They were 7-0 following a loss in this postseason with a plus 22 goal differential. All 16 of their playoff wins came in regulation. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning, your Stanley Cup champions. You're listening to Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith. It is Thursday, July 8th. We are congratulating the Tampa Bay Lightning on winning the Stanley Cup. And listen, I'll give you these odds right now. I wouldn't make a wager on this. I would let this marinate for a little bit. But the Barstool Sportsbook was kind enough to post Stanley Cup championship odds for next season. Colorado Avalanche at the top of the board at 5-1. The Vegas Golden Knights at 6-1. The defending champs, the Lightning, third team on the board at 7-1, which is still shorter than what you could have gotten them last preseason at 10-1. Maple Leafs 12-1, throw them out the window. Bruins 15-1, Hurricanes 15-1. I would be willing to at least consider them. I like that Carolina team a lot, but again, they've got the tough task of having to be in the same division as Tampa Bay Lightning. Regardless, I'm not making any wagers on any Stanley Cup Finals futures at the moment, but at least noteworthy as we close the book on one hockey season and eventually look into the future for another. All right, more importantly, more relevant to today's proceedings, how hot are we in Major League Baseball? We are sweltering. We were one bad outing away from another perfect night last night. 2-1, 7-2 for the week. We've given out 3 picks every day, the first 3 days here on the show, and we have not had a losing night yet, as I knock on my desk here, knock on wood. The winners last night. Actually, I'll get to the losers first. We'll do the loser first. Get the crappy part out of the way. So I don't want to say this was a bad read, because I think everything in this situation pointed us to what the Phillies gonna win. And Zach Wheeler, who's been incredible, the Cubs, who have been losing games left and right. Well, this game to me showed the fluky side of baseball betting. The Cubs were on an 11-game losing streak. Zach Wheeler was coming off arguably his best 2 starts of the year against the Padres and the Mets. Well, he got rocked for 5 runs in the first 2 innings. Oh well, can't win them all. And I think if you played that game out 100 times, I'd be willing to bet that the Phillies covered on the first 5-run line more often than not. But they lost on the first 5-run line. They lost the game 8-3. Chicago finally snaps their 11-game losing streak. That was the bad. The good. Our best pick of the night was definitely the Blue Jays-Orioles over. That game was a slugfest from the start. Toronto scored 3 runs in the first inning. Probably should have been more. They scored 3 runs again in the 4th, again in the 5th, and then finally in the 8th inning, we got home safe with I believe it was either a home run or a double by Toronto that got us that elusive 11th run. I was honestly, there was a moment in the 6th and the 7th when Baltimore had some opportunities to score. I believe one guy got thrown out at the plate on a sac fly that would have been the winner for us. And I'm waiting for the anvil to drop where the last 3 or 4 innings go scoreless. But luckily, each team scored in the 8th, and we were able to get home. Over 10.5 cashes. Not as easily as I would have hoped, but I thought that was a good read for us because Matt Harvey was brutal. Ryu was pretty good, and that kind of turned it against us a little bit. I thought he was going to give up at least 2 or 3 runs. Ended up only going through the 5th, and I think that is what saved us, is the Orioles got his pitch count up enough to where he had to leave the game early. They scored a run in the 5th, and then they got that other run in the 8th, which, kind of at least made it not as tight for us. We didn't cover by just the half. We got home by a run and a half, but I felt like that was a good read. Astros on the run line in the first 5. This one was kind of the toss-up. The A's took the lead in the first inning. Manaea was actually pretty good in this game. He made one mistake. Jose Altuve hit a 3-run home run, and that was the one mistake that got us this win. And this was big because in the 6th inning, the A's actually came back to tie the game. And then in the 7th, the Astros took the lead and won it 4-3. So you look at the first 5, and that can be the flukiness. Again, we talked about that Phillies game, the flukiness of betting on Major League Baseball on any given night. Anything can happen. So last night overall, it was kind of a split night. Underdogs went 9-8. I think there were 2 doubleheaders. That's why they were either 1 or 2 doubleheaders. I forget. The Cubs, one of the bigger, obviously, underdog wins of the night, snapping that 11-game losing streak. Doubleheader sweeps as well. We saw the Rays. We saw the Marlins upset the Dodgers. The Rays were a favorite in both of their games. They won both. The Marlins was just a 1-game underdog winner, but they beat the Dodgers for the 3rd straight day. How about that? That's an interesting, I told you, LA, the Bauer stuff, they're coming back to earth a little bit. That National League West is very interesting. And of course, just fascinating stuff. We'll get to the Indians a little bit later in the show, but they lost their 8th and 9th games in a row. The Rays do win that doubleheader. I believe the Brewers and the Mets split the doubleheader as well. Jacob deGrom gave up a run in the first inning and then looked pretty Jacob deGrom-like. So good night for us in Major League Baseball. I still think there's some more winning left in us, though. And I want to have one of those emphatic weeks. I want to come on this show for you guys and deliver the goods. Who knows? Maybe Brandon Walker and company will give me a tryout to come back on the show next week when the Barstool Boys are back. If we win, why not? Bring us back and let us try to keep making you money. The one other thing I'll mention that happened yesterday that was noteworthy, there was an upset at Wimbledon. Roger Federer goes down in straight sets to Hubert Hurkacz. Apologize if I mispronounced that name. Hurkacz was a plus 215 dog. So Roger Federer, who looked very mortal, very ordinary yesterday, is going to have some decisions to make about the future of his career. But we do have a Final Four set on the men's side at Wimbledon. Odds-wise, Matteo Berrettini and Hubert Hurkacz, that's one semifinal. Novak Djokovic, Denis Shapovalov, that's the other semifinal. Obviously, Joker's a monster favorite. Minus 1250. Berrettini minus 275. You want a quick pick for this? So Djokovic on the money line parlayed with Hurkacz plus 2.5 sets. It's juicy. It's like minus 200. But Hurkacz's game, again, this is according to my Wimbledon expert. Hurkacz's game suits grass, drop shot, slice, good net game. So he's got a chance to steal a set from Berrettini. These are Friday's semifinals, and obviously Djokovic is going to win. He's a minus 1250 favorite. All right, you're listening to Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One, Segment 1 in the books. When we come back, we'll look ahead. Suns Bucks game 2. We'll give you some picks and we'll continue the show. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith, in for Brandon Walker this week. The Barstool crew will be back with you on Monday, but still a lot of work to do until then. Tonight, game 2, Suns and Bucks in the Valley. Phoenix looked pretty darn good in game 1, despite the fact that Milwaukee, I thought, played a relatively good game. Phoenix still won game 1, covered the spread, game went over. So let's fire up the Barstool Sportsbook and take a look at game 2. The odds are telling us, a little movement overnight. So I went to bed last night. The Suns were a 5.5-point favorite, total 220.5. Well, I wake up this morning. The Suns are now a 5-point favorite. And again, that total, which opened up to 17.5 in game 1, has significantly risen here in game 2. So we're seeing a little bit of the action, the sharps, if you want to call them that, taking a slice of Milwaukee, moving that line from 5.5 to 5. I can tell you, again, recording this a little bit earlier in the day on Thursday, so these splits could change. Again, we talked about this earlier in the week. Sharps bet early, public bets late. Over the next 5 hours or so, whenever you're listening to this, usually that's when the exposure really starts to pick up game day betting. But right now, I'm seeing the ticket count relatively split. 55% on Phoenix, 45% on Milwaukee. The money, though, heavily favoring the Suns. 80% of the handle coming in on Phoenix. But despite that, the line has moved in Milwaukee's favor. Is that reverse line movement? Technically, yes. But when it's just a half a point, in my eyes, not that significant. So we're not going to approach this game tonight thinking that there is sharp reverse line movement coming in on Milwaukee, because I just don't see the significant movement. Half a point, again, not that big of a deal. But what is a big deal is the fact that the Suns in game 1, in my eyes, were very, very decisive with their game plan. And they executed it to perfection. Most notably, the pick and roll battle, which in my eyes is going to determine this series. If you're going to ask me in a week when we reflect on this series, what was the X factor, I'm going to tell you it was how effective, if Phoenix wins, most likely, I will tell you how effective Chris Paul and Devin Booker were getting the switches they wanted on the high post pick and roll. Because in game 1, they got whatever they wanted on that 1 versus 5. Now, what do I mean by 1v5? I'm not trying to confuse any of you out there. So every position, similar to baseball, every position on the basketball court also has a number associated with it. 1 being the point guard, 2, 3, 4, 5 being the center. Well, what the Suns like to do, top of the key, high post, they take DeAndre Ayton and they pair Ayton up with either Booker or Chris Paul. Most of the time it's Chris Paul. And they try to get that switch. They try to get Portis or Giannis or PJ Tucker, who's guarding DeAndre Ayton, to switch onto Chris Paul or Devin Booker. And that creates the option for those guards to get into the paint because they're quicker and they're faster and they can get by the bigger defenders. Well, Phoenix did that incredibly well in game 1. That's why Chris Paul and Devin Booker combined for 59 of Phoenix's 118 points. Can the Bucks adjust to that? How do they adjust to that? Well, they stop switching screens. Easier said than done. But they could also hedge, and that allows the center to get back into position if in fact they do that. By hedge, meaning that the center, instead of just switching, will actually move Chris Paul or Devin Booker closer to the midcourt stripe by kind of pushing them out. And that will allow the defense to readjust. Again, that takes kind of cohesion. you need all of the defenders to move in unison, because if you overhedge, then that leaves someone open on the backside, on the weak side, and then it's an easy layup. And you know Chris Paul is going to find those all night long. So it's going to be a strategy chess game to see if Coach Bud can adjust to that high pick and roll disadvantage that Milwaukee really struggled with in game one. The Suns, I mean, listen, if they continue to play at the level that they were playing at, they're not going to lose this series. They didn't shoot it that well in game one, just 32% from three. Bucks shot 44%, but they still won by 13. Phoenix, 19-8 against the number at home against playoff teams this year. They're good, and they beat good teams at home. You can kind of see the case that I'm building for Phoenix tonight as we slowly talk through these odds. In my eyes, it's going to come down to, can Phoenix continue to exploit those mismatches in the high post and at the top of the key with the 1v5 pick and roll? If they can, they're going to win this game. But first, you're listening to Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith, in for Brandon Walker and the Barstool crew this week. They will be back on Monday, going through the odds, the prices, the props, the edges for Game 2 of the NBA Finals tonight. Very excited to see how Milwaukee responds. Excited to see if Phoenix can continue to put the pressure on. Right now, if I had to make the pick at this exact moment, I'm taking the Suns. And I don't care what the line movement says. I don't care if it's public, if it's sharp, whatever. My eyes tell me Coach Bud has a lot of work to do. And if you were going to ask me the better of the two coaches in this series, Coach Bud or Monty Williams, I'm taking Monty Williams, who has shown overcome every obstacle that has been put in his path. Chris Paul gets COVID, doesn't matter. The Suns, historically, not a winning team, especially lately, doesn't matter. Phoenix has been the best team in the postseason. Milwaukee's been good, but I think Phoenix has been better. You know who needs to be a lot better if Milwaukee wants any chance to win this game tonight? That's Jrue Holiday. 0 for 4 from three-point range in game one. He had 10 points. He was 4 of 14 from the field. I'll be honest. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Jrue Holiday being able to do anything better than what he did in game one. Could he shoot it a little bit better? Sure. 0 of 4, maybe he goes 1 of 4. But that would mean, and he only has 13 points. And right now in the Barstool Sportsbook, I'm seeing Jrue Holiday's point total at 19.5. I would be willing to bet the under there. Now, again, we talked about the props a little earlier in the week. I know they're fun. I know they're exciting because you don't have to worry about who wins or who loses the game. But I just don't see a ton of value with the props at this stage. It's very hard to determine matchups because the desperation level with these teams is so high that they will go away from something very quickly if it's not working. I think live props are the better bet in the finals. But if you're going to bet props, I think under is the way to go, because sometimes we are a little bit too cavalier with betting the overs in certain scenarios. So naturally, the value lies on the other side of the market. I would be willing to put a shiny unit on Jrue Holiday's under points prop tonight. I'm not giving it out as an official play. The only official play that I think I'm making in this game tonight is Phoenix. But I would look to Jrue Holiday's under 19.5 points. How about the other X factor in this series? DeAndre Ayton. We talked about him in those high pick and roll scenarios, getting the better of the matchups. And you have to look at the matchups on both sides. So we talked about Chris Paul and Devin Booker getting the big man switching onto them, which allows the driving lanes to open up and kind of allows the offense to get going. Well, the other side of that matchup is whoever was supposed to be guarding Paul or Booker, usually a guard, most likely a Holiday or one of those types of players from Milwaukee in the backcourt, maybe a Chris Middleton. Those players now have to switch on to DeAndre Ayton. And there were a few moments in game one where Ayton got the matchup on Holiday, and Chris Paul just said, here you go, buddy. You've got about a foot on Drew Holiday. Go dunk it. And he just gave him a little lob pass, and then boom, it's a bucket. Ayton had 22 points and 19 rebounds in game one. He went over his points and rebounds prop by 13 and a half. Oh, and by the way, 0 turnovers for a third-year big man facing a 2-time MVP in Giannis. Pretty good game all around on both ends of the floor for, I know he's not a rookie, but in terms of the playoffs, he's a rookie. First time in the postseason for DeAndre Ayton. First time in the finals for DeAndre Ayton. Showing no signs of inexperience or lack of confidence. Ayton's point prop tonight on the Barstool Sportsbook, 16 and a half. All right, not too shabby. To record a double-double, I'm just curious. I'm sure the number's insane. Minus 335 to record a double-double. Listen, I know it's pricey. It implies about an 80% chance of that taking place. Minus 300. No, a little bit shorter than that. It'd be like 78% or something like that. But in 8 out of 10 scenarios, if you see DeAndre Ayton recording a double-double, then minus 335 is not a bad bet. I would say it's more like 9 out of 10 scenarios that he gets a double-double. But you never know, foul trouble, this and that. I don't think that's a good bet to make. But I would be willing to bet. If you were just going to ask me, does DeAndre Ayton have a double-double in this game tonight? I certainly would say yes. His rebounding prop is 12 and a half. I would say that would be the safer of the two bets. If you wanted to say points or rebounds, I would go rebounds because I just don't see an answer to him on the glass. Now, rebounds can be fluky too, as can points. All these props are fluky. I mean, it just takes one moment for things to swing in the other direction. But I do like the Phoenix Suns tonight. I do think they take a 2-0 series lead. If I had to pick the total, I think the game goes over because I don't think Phoenix had a great shooting game in game one. Yet it still went over the total. The Bucks had a really good shooting game. It went above their 3-point average, 44%. But again, I think Phoenix plays better than they did in game one. And I think that's bad news for the Milwaukee Bucks. All right, before we toss to break, I want to recap briefly what we saw in the Euro yesterday. We will have an official final pick tomorrow in our final show, which is fitting. But England won 2-1 in extra time. They were a hefty favorite, not only on the three-way money line, but also to advance. They did advance. They did not hit the three-way money line. The draw was the winner there, as this game did go into extra time. Denmark scored on a beautiful set piece early. England deserved a goal. They had the advantage in the run of play. They got a goal. It was an own goal, but it probably could have been a goal if it wasn't kicked in by the Denmark defender. So I don't have a problem with this match going to extra time. It deserved extra time, but in extra time, England got one of the softest penalties I've ever seen in a European Championship, no less a club match. And then Harry Kane missed the penalty. Give credit to Kasper Schmeichel, the Denmark keeper, saved the penalty, but unfortunate bounce. It bounced right back to Harry Kane, who slotted it into the back of the net, and that was the decisive goal. 2-1, England wins in extra time. Tough result for Denmark backers. We had that 28-1 future on them. Ugh, my heart breaks for Denmark and bettors on Denmark, because I really think if that match went to penalties, I think Schmeichel had an advantage on the England keeper, Jordan Pickford, and I think Denmark would have went through. But that's the way soccer goes, which means we have our final, Italy and England. I mean, as much as I would have liked to see Denmark go through, this is a really good final at Wembley Stadium on Sunday. England right now is the favorite, plus 163 on the three-way money line. Italy plus 200, the draw plus 205, the total set at 2.5. Juicy to the under at minus 220, over plus 163. The under is 7-0 in matches played at Wembley Stadium in this tournament. That's our first look. I'm expecting this to be cagey, but I got to see Gareth Southgate's lineup, and we're not going to see that till Sunday. So I'll try to get you a pick tomorrow. But again, be mindful of some lineup snafus that could take place over the weekend. All right, you're listening to Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. Coming up next, our final segment here on this Thursday, Major League Baseball picks. Can we stay hot? Find out after this. Welcome back to Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith. Final segment here on this Thursday, July 8th. And you know what that means, baby. Major League Baseball picks. And boy, are we hot. 2-1 last night, 7-2 for the week. Bit of a dicey situation brewing today here on the East Coast because of some weather, which could impact some of the games that I am about to pick. I apologize if there are rainouts, but to counteract the possibility of losing one of your bets, not losing, but just the game not being played, I'm going to give you an extra pick tonight. Because the weather here on the East Coast, as I said, is dicey. Two of the games that I am picking, one of them is in Baltimore, the other one is in Queens. 50-50 chance one of them gets rained out. So we're going to double down and give you two picks. Hopefully one or both of the games get played, and hopefully they're both winners. But we will start with what I think is my best bet of the day. It is taking place in Baltimore. It is the Blue Jays on the run line. I got it at minus 140. I wouldn't pay much more than minus 150. If you really want to get aggressive here and go minus 2.5 on the run line, which is very aggressive, you'll get some plus money. But I think minus 1.5 is safe. Here's why. Toronto blew out Baltimore last night. We picked that game to the over. It finished 10-2. They've scored 17 runs in the first two games of this series. And Toronto 6-3 against Baltimore on the year. The Blue Jays offense dialed in. That's why we liked the over last night. That's why we like Toronto today. They lead Major League Baseball in average at OPS over the last 15 days. Pretty good. Meanwhile, the Orioles start a lefty today, Keegan Akin. Blue Jays hit lefties well. And how about this? Baltimore is just 1-10 in the games Akin has started this year. He's allowed 26 earned runs in 21 innings pitched. Yikes. Yikes. The Blue Jays scored 6 runs in 4 1/3 against Akin just 3 weeks ago. Meanwhile, on the other side, and this is why we don't like just the over today, because this Blue Jays pitcher, Alex Manoah, this youngster, in his first 36 2/3 innings, pitching to a 2.7 ERA. He has not allowed an earned run in each of his last 2 starts, and he's coming off a 10K performance against the Tampa Bay Rays. I think the Manoah K prop also in play here. I haven't seen a number just yet. Hasn't been posted as of recording this segment. But I think the Blue Jays on the run line is the safer play. I'm laying about 40 cents. The second pick taking place here across the I-95 corridor, the Mets hosting the Pirates tonight. So I think this is a really good spot for the Mets. This is what I like to call the all-star revenge game. Taijuan Walker on the mound tonight for New York. And I would say of all the pitchers across Major League Baseball, especially the National League, I think Walker's got the best case for all-star snub. So 7-3 with a 2.44 ERA this year. His whip is basically a flat 1. And with Jacob deGrom having to miss the All-Star game, I don't think he has to miss it. I think he chose to miss it, which is a great decision by Jacob deGrom. He lobbied really hard for his teammate, Taijuan Walker, to take his place. Didn't happen. This is Walker's last start before the break. I bet he's going to want to shove it to all those voters who didn't get him to Mile High. By the way, the All-Star game's in Denver at Coors Field. So I like Walker tonight to give me his best stuff. Meanwhile, the Pirates are sending JT Brubaker to the mound, who's been pretty good for Pittsburgh, all things considered this year. He's been their best starter, but lately he's kind of fallen off the map. And that's kind of what you get with these younger pitchers. They might give you flashes of brilliance, but over the longer haul of the season, their true numbers will eventually kind of regress to the mean. And that's what we've seen with Brubaker. He's given up 5 runs in his last 6 innings against the Brewers. That was his last start. And I think the Mets offense with Nimmo back at the top gets across the finish line. First 5-run line, minus 110. Basically even money. Not a bad price there, but considering that the money line for the game is minus 190 for the Mets to win. So you're getting about a 80% difference there between the first 5-run line for them to have the lead after 5 compared to them having the lead after 9. So we're going to go Mets first 5-run line. But obviously weather could be a factor. Hopefully one or both of these games take place. If one of them gets postponed, well, guess what? We still have 3 picks for you. The other 2 picks, I'm not concerned with weather. These picks are taking place. These games are taking place in the central part of our great nation. Reds on the money line. They are taking on the Brewers, who have come back to earth after that 11-game winning streak. They've dropped 3 of their last 4. They had to play a doubleheader yesterday in Queens against the Mets. They split that doubleheader. Meanwhile, the Reds, this is a road game for Cincinnati, traveling to Milwaukee from Kansas City, which doesn't take a geography major to know that that's a pretty short trip. Cincinnati's won 6 of their last 7 games. They send Tyler Mahle to the mound tonight. He's the best pitcher on the staff. Reverse splits, better on the road for Mahle. 5-1, 2.01 ERA, 188 batting average against on the road this year. Brewers, not swinging it that well. Lowest team batting average in the National League at 219. Yikes. They'll send Adrian Hauser to the mound. This is going to be the best lineup Hauser's faced in weeks. His last 4 starts combined, 2 against the Pirates, 2 against the Rockies. Despite that, still allowed 12 runs over 23 1/3. The last time Cincinnati traveled to Milwaukee, they swept the Brewers. I see a big edge here on the mound at the plate, and I like the price. Even money. I got it in at minus 103 for the Reds to beat the Brewers tonight. We are going with Cincinnati to take down Milwaukee. Final pick. It's an underdog. We do like to bet underdogs sometimes, and I like this pooch tonight to bark. Royals money line over the Indians. I got in at plus 120. Cleveland's lost 9 games in a row. And again, when it comes to baseball, at the end of what is a long stretch of games, the All-Star break is this weekend, travel matters. Cleveland last night lost in Tampa Bay. They got to get on a plane and go back home. Kansas City, meanwhile, lost to Cincinnati. The difference between Cincinnati and Cleveland, it's in the same state. Pretty short trip for the Royals to go across the Buckeye State and play this game in Cleveland. Meanwhile, the Indians, again, have to travel from Florida to get back home. Danny Duffy, Zach Plesac, that's your pitching matchup here. Duffy's having a great season. One of his best. 2.60 ERA in 2 starts against Cleveland this year, too. Pretty good. Excuse me. 2.60 ERA overall. In 2 starts against Cleveland this year, 3 earned runs, 11 2/3 innings pitched. And we talked about the Indians. They're dreadful. They've lost 9 in a row. During that streak, they've scored just 1 run in the last 2 games. Plesac's ERA, mediocre, 4.14. Giving up 10 runs, 8 of them earned over his last 2 outings. Duffy's strikeout prop, also in play here. No team has struck out more in the past week than the Cleveland Indians. So that's our picks tonight in Major League Baseball. Let's recap. But first, this is Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith. Brandon Walker and the Barstool crew will return on Monday. Until then, I'm keeping the seat warm, and we're trying to keep it even warmer than we did last night. This is the first night this week we've given out 4 Major League Baseball picks. Again, the caveat being 1 or 2 of them might get rained out. The weather here in the Northeast corridor, a little iffy. Baltimore, New York City, 2 of the locations of these games tonight. But here are the plays. Blue Jays on the run line against Baltimore. Reds on the money line against the Brewers. Royals money line, our 1 underdog of the night against the Cleveland Indians. And the Mets, first 5 run line against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Blue Jays, Reds, Royals, Mets. That's our card here for this Thursday night. Before we say farewell, let's go through some Major League Baseball trends, and we'll go over some of the other games that I'm seeing tonight across the Major League Baseball landscape that might be intriguing. Maybe I'll give you some leans, and then we'll close up shop in a few moments by hammering home our NBA pick of the night. So the Phillies and the Cubs play again tonight. The Cubs just snapped that long losing streak. Cubs right now minus 112 on the money line on Barstool Sportsbook. Phillies minus 106. Let's see what the pitching matchup is in this game. That's going to be the big question for me. Eflin against Alzolay. Alzolay's been pretty good this year. Eflin, Let's see what the odds are telling us. Chicago and Philly. It looks like the majority of action is on Chicago. Line's relatively stable. I would pass on this one. Usually the games that I haven't given you, I'm passing for a reason. Tigers and Twins a little later tonight. Tigers, slight underdog there, total 9.5. I saw that total come down off of 10 a little bit. I would consider the under there, but Skubal and Happ, not your best pitching matchup. And again, while J-Happ's ERA is over 9. The fact that the total has gone down from 10 to 9.5 there with Happ on the mound, maybe J-Happ's going to have a good performance tonight. The other game that we didn't mention happening later tonight, Nats and Padres. Good pitching matchup here. Scherzer, Darvish. Looks like the majority of the action's coming in on Washington as an underdog in San Diego. Again, I would lay off that one too. Looks like the total's risen from 6.5 to 7. 2 decent offenses. You want to take a nibble on the over there, considering one of those. It'll only take one of those 2 pitchers to have a bad outing for that over to cash. And that's a very low total. Again, hitters, not a great hitter's ballpark out there in San Diego, but Scherzer and Darvish, it'll just take one slip up for the over to cash at 7. All right, before we close up shop for the day, Suns, Bucks, game 2. As I record this, just right at around noonish on Thursday, Phoenix laying 5, total 220.5. I like the Suns. Why? They did everything right in game 1 except shoot it well, which I think is the one volatile statistic that actually could positively regress. And if Phoenix shoots it better from 3, they shot 32% from 3 in game 1. If they shoot 38% in game 2, they're going to win this game by double digits again. Because I just don't know if Milwaukee's going to make those adjustments that they need to make. Again, Phoenix has done everything right so far. They are an incredibly well-coached team, balanced on both ends. Defense, offense. It's going to take a Herculean effort for this Milwaukee team to beat the Suns 4 out of the next 6 and win the series. What does that matter for tonight? Not a whole lot. I think Milwaukee plays better, or at least they can't play any worse than they did against those high pick and rolls. But again, it's going to take a perfect 4 out of 6 game stretch for Milwaukee to win this series. By the way, in the playoffs, the Suns are shooting 37% from 3. So they were 5% lower than that in game 1 and still won by 13, and the game still went over. So we will give you an official play for this game. Suns, if you can get 5, great. If you can get 4.5, even better. We'll grade it at 5, since that seems to be the consensus line right now across the marketplace. Prop-wise, the only prop I would be willing to bet in this game is the Drew Holiday under points prop. He is not ready for the big time. I don't think Booker and Paul are a good matchup for him. I just think Holiday's in over his head. And I think if the Bucks win this series or win this game or even cover this total, cover this number tonight, it's going to be because of Middleton and Giannis playing above reproach. And that's another question for me. Physicality-wise, can Giannis bounce back from what was a very physical game 1? And he showed a lot of that bounce that we like to see, but the hyperextended knee is still an issue. Physically, can he bounce back just 2 nights later? So we'll recap the picks one more time. Blue Jays on the run line. Mets first 5 run line. Reds money line. Royals money line. Suns -5. And we will pray for no rain here on the East Coast. Thank you for tuning in to this Thursday edition of Pick Central from Barstool Sports and Westwood One. I'm your host, Jared Smith, in for Brandon Walker this week. Thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow, we'll close up shop for the week. More MLB picks, and we'll recap Game 2 of the finals. Good luck with your plays. Let's cash some tickets.